Buongiorno. Buongiorno a tutti e benvenuti alla conferenza stampa della serie d'Argent et de Sang. Vi presento subito gli ospiti al tavolo, che sono il produttore Olivier Delbosch, gli interpreti Judith Chemla, Ramzi Bedia, Olga Kurilenko e Vincent Lindon. E il sceneggiatore e regista Xavier Giannoli. Come leggiamo proprio all'inizio di questa splendida serie, maybe you need to wear the headphones. E si tratta di una storia di finzione basata su fatti reali e quindi mi piacerebbe che cominciassimo questa chiacchierata proprio con il racconto del lavoro che avete fatto sul dato reale e su come avete costruito la finzione a partire da fatti realmente accaduti e, come leggiamo alla fine, su un'inchiesta che è tuttora in corso.
Voilà, vous m'entendez? Oui. Nous sommes très heureux d'être ici et merci pour votre invitation. La série est inspirée d'un livre enquête d'un grand journaliste français qui s'appelle Fabrice Arfi et qui travaille pour un média en ligne qui s'appelle Mediapart. Et il avait fait beaucoup d'articles sur ce qu'on appelait l'escroquerie du siècle, qui était l'escroquerie dite de la taxe carbone. Il avait fait un livre. C'est une enquête comme font beaucoup les journalistes américains d'une certaine façon, et la façon qu'il avait de raconter l'histoire était déjà très romanesque. Et quand j'ai lu le livre, je me suis tout de suite dit qu'il y avait un matériau fictionnel absolument extraordinaire, que c'était très rare dans une vie de tomber sur des histoires aussi riches, aussi complexes, avec une galerie de personnages aussi incroyable, et puis en même temps des enjeux politiques, parfois scandaleux d'ailleurs. Et j'en ai parlé au producteur Olivier Delbosch, on est allé voir Canal+, et Canal+ nous a accompagnés dans cette aventure. Après, ce livre a servi de base pour l'écriture d'une fiction qui est devenue la série. Voilà.
Ci sono già delle domande? A proposito dei personaggi, appunto sappiamo che sono ispirati a personaggi reali e quindi vorrei sapere dagli interpreti come hanno lavorato sui rispettivi personaggi a partire da persone realmente esistenti, se oltre il libro inchiesta di cui parlava Giannoli sono state fatte delle ricerche, degli approfondimenti anche individuali, ecco, come vi siete relazionati con la persona vera che interpretate.
Bonjour. J'essaie de faire des réponses courtes parce que c'est toujours difficile pour les actrices et les acteurs de parler de leur rôle avant parce qu'ils ne le connaissent pas très bien, avant de faire le film, et après parce qu'ils sont tellement devenus lui ou elle que ça devient une explication de texte et qu'on a envie de dire aux gens je ne vais pas vous expliquer quelque chose que vous allez voir. Mais ce personnage m'a énormément attiré parce que j'ai toujours pensé qu'entre un acteur et un rôle, ce qui est pareil avec les actrices, mais généralement on choisit de faire un rôle parce que où on fantasme le personnage, on a envie d'être lui, ou inversement, quelquefois, on se dit lui, c'est moi. Il va être le vecteur, le moyen de pouvoir dire ce que je pense moi, mais je serai moins écouté que le personnage, puisque moi, quand je parle, il n'y a que 50 personnes qui m'écoutent. Mais par contre, quand on fait une série aussi talentueuse que celle-là, il y a peut-être des millions et des millions de gens qui vont voir ce que je pense à travers ce personnage. Et c'est une chance, puisque comme il a mon nez, mes yeux, ma tête, ma démarche et ma voix, je vais pouvoir essayer de donner dedans tout ce qui m'obsède dans la vie. Et ce qui m'obsède, c'est la justice ou l'injustice et l'impunité. C'est mon dada. Je veux toujours absolument que l'autre sache que je sais, et je ne veux pas supporter que quelqu'un parte sans qu'on lui ait dit qu'il a fait quelque chose de bien ou qu'il a fait quelque chose de mal. Et donc, j'ai adoré être ce personnage parce qu'il m'a permis de frôler la folie, l'obsession. Et l'obsession est une chose qui m'a toujours fasciné. Le travail, s'acharner, l'acharnement pour le bien, ou en tout cas ce qu'on croit être le bien. Et donc, c'est un des personnages qui m'a le plus passionné dans ma vie d'acteur, parce que je partais le matin en me disant, je vais enfin pouvoir être moi pendant 16 mois devant une caméra. J'ai juste le nom qui change, mais c'est ce que j'aurais fait si j'avais été lui. Et il n'y a pas plus beau cadeau pour un acteur ou pour une actrice de se dire, je vais aller tous les matins faire quelque chose que... C'est vraiment ça, c'est comme un enfant qui se déguise en cow-boy. Je vais pouvoir me servir de ce personnage pour crier au monde entier ce que je pense au fond de moi. Voilà, je ne peux pas dire autre chose sur ce personnage et sur la série. Et quant à Xavier Giannoli, c'est terrible parce que ça devient banal de dire j'ai adoré travailler avec ce metteur en scène, je l'aime beaucoup, il est incroyablement talentueux, il est tellement intelligent, puisque tout le monde le dit. Mais je ne peux pas, sous prétexte que tout le monde dit c'est formidable de travailler avec un metteur en scène, dire le contraire juste pour être original. Donc c'est une expérience de cinéma inoubliable. C'est quelqu'un avec qui j'aime travailler. C'est même pas travailler, c'était on rentre en religion. On pense toute la journée à la même chose. On est obsédé par le film. Il cherche, il propose. Généralement, j'aime pas beaucoup qu'on me dirige et qu'on me dise ce que j'ai à faire. Mais avec Xavier, j'aime ça parce que, en fait, et après je laisserai la parole aux autres. Xavier a toujours raison. Voilà.
Ranzi.
Bonsoir et merci de nous avoir invités. C'est un peu la même chose que Vincent, je t'écoutais et je suis complètement d'accord. J'ai vécu pendant 1 an avec ce personnage complètement fantasque et complètement libre. Et c'était assez facile, je dirais pas facile, mais c'est une partie de moi que j'ai, c'est quelque chose que j'avais au fond et je suis un petit peu comme celui-là. Mais le tenir 1 an, c'était fatigant. J'en ai eu un petit peu assez à la fin de l'année. Et comme disait Vincent, tourner avec Xavier, qui a toujours raison donc, c'est quelque chose de paradoxalement très reposant. Quand j'allais sur le plateau, je n'avais pas peur. J'avais peur avant d'attaquer ce projet. Mais une fois qu'on est sur le plateau avec Xavier, j'avais plus peur. On est comme dans une sorte de train d'argent et de sang. On lui fait confiance. Et puis, il nous fait confiance. Il m'a laissé faire ce que je voulais. Et c'est un petit peu moi, ce personnage. Et si j'avais pas eu la chance de faire du cinéma, je pense que j'aurais peut-être pu être un petit peu comme celui-là. Bon. Oui. Merci beaucoup de m'avoir permis de sortir ça et de redevenir normal une fois que c'est fini. Merci. Voilà ce que m'a fait ce personnage.
Et Olga, toi, qu'est-ce que tu veux?
Olga ou Julie?
Bonjour. Écoutez, tout le monde dit qu'ils sont comme leur personnage, mais moi, je veux dire que je suis tout le contraire de mon personnage, du coup. Julia, c'est une fille qui... clairement cherche une belle vie, une de ses filles, parce que chacun a son truc. Il y a des gens pour qui c'est très important. Elle cherche être vue, elle aime être vue, elle est obsédée par la notoriété, elle veut être connue, elle veut qu'on prenne des photos d'elle, elle va avec cet homme. Je pense que c'est des filles... C'est une fille qui ne cherche pas tant l'amour comme tout ce qui, comme le paraître d'amour. Donc elle est dans le paraître. Et c'est ça qui la rend heureuse, ou elle pense que ça la rend heureuse. Mais comme souvent, quand on mène ce style de vie-là, on finit par être un peu déçu à la fin. Et je pense qu'au départ, elle est excitée par tout le danger et elle est faite, il y a un petit peu des choses qui sont pas très claires et même pas très clean, mais à la fin, elle finit quand même par comprendre que ça devient très grave. mais elle ne peut plus s'échapper. Je pense que moi, j'aimerais pas être elle dans la vraie vie, parce que c'est quand même très grave ce qui arrive à la fin. Mais oui, c'est un personnage très intéressant à interpréter, parce que bon, il y a beaucoup de gens à notre époque de qui on peut s'inspirer quand même. Il suffit de regarder Instagram et on y est. Voilà.
Et Judith, toi, qu'est-ce que tu...
Le micro. Ouais, c'était... Je pense que mon personnage enfin, je veux dire, prend tout dans la tronche, si tu veux. C'est la victime totale de cette histoire. C'était pas franchement une partie de plaisir. C'était lourd, c'était noir, c'était la machine à broyer. C'était dur, mais j'étais extrêmement heureuse d'être sous la direction de Xavier, qui était une sorte de chevalier droit et radical pour traiter de cet engrenage furieux et terrible que raconte cette histoire, et passionnant, puisque, comme tu le dis dans le dossier de presse, le personnage d'Athias est vraiment un produit dégénéré de nos sociétés modernes autodestructrices. Donc, quelque part, on est dans la tragédie intime qui rejoint la tragédie politique de nos sociétés, quoi. Donc, c'était extrêmement puissant, quand même, à traverser. Ouais.
Olivier, invece mi chiedevo che tipo di impatto vi aspettate o sperate? Cioè, quando ci si occupa di un materiale così caldo, insomma, è stato un caso importantissimo in Francia, e che impatto ci si aspetta o si desidera per l'arrivo di una serie al grande pubblico, che magari può scoprire anche dietro le quinte di un fatto che ha letto magari forse distrattamente sui giornali? Ecco, che impatto vi aspettate?
Bonjour, d'abord et merci d'être là. Le fait divers, cette histoire a beaucoup eu de retentissement en France, donc je pense qu'elle est assez connue du public. Donc on est très impatient, bien sûr, que la série soit diffusée en octobre en France sur Canal. Mais oui, l'impatience et puis l'excitation, bien sûr, oui.
Ci sono domande? A proposito dei media che citava Olivier, nel film si parla chiaramente di, come dire, di una complicità, di una disattenzione da parte dei media e di una complicità, di un silenzio colpevole da parte della politica che chiude gli occhi di fronte a certi fatti. Ecco, mi piacerebbe che ci raccontasse anche un po' come avete lavorato su questo aspetto della politica e dei media, come avete affrontato questo tema che è fondamentale.
Alors, il faut prendre la mesure que cette affaire en France, et d'ailleurs dans le monde, certains disent, bien que ce n'est pas très reluisant de faire des podiums, que c'est la plus grande escroquerie qui n'a jamais été faite dans le monde, en fait. On ne sait aujourd'hui toujours pas exactement combien de milliards ont été détournés à ce qui était prévu pour être une lutte contre le réchauffement climatique. Et ces petits escrocs, enfin, ces escrocs, ont trouvé comment détourner des milliards. Tout cela a été fait à une vitesse extraordinaire, puisque ça a duré à peine 6 mois, en tout cas dans le volet de l'affaire que nous traitons dans la série. Donc moi, ma façon d'écrire, et puis j'espère de voir le monde, c'est de ne pas être c'est de chercher la complexité des situations. Ce serait démagogique et idiot d'aller dire c'est un scandale d'État, il n'y a eu aucune régulation, les politiciens ont fait n'importe quoi. Je ne suis pas comme ça, et ce n'est pas du tout le point de vue ni moral ou politique de la série. Ce sont des situations très complexes où tout se mélange, la lutte contre le réchauffement climatique, l'envie de proposer une nouvelle formule économique avec un marché des quotas carbone. Vous achetez des quotas carbone qui sont comme des droits à polluer. Et puis ces escrocs ont détourné ce principe du marché. Et en même temps, quand j'ai parlé avec des gens impliqués dans l'affaire, ils ont dit « mais l'État a réagi en fond assez vite pour l'État, puisqu'ils ont mis 6 mois à réagir. Mais pendant ces 6 mois, les escrocs ont été d'une extraordinaire intelligence et rapidité. » Voilà. Donc moi, je ne veux pas, surtout pas célébrer ce qu'ils ont pu faire, évidemment, en disant « Ah, regardez comme ils ont été malins ». Et en même temps, je ne veux pas être dans le confort d'un jugement moral. J'essaie de montrer, de me saisir du monde et de la complexité du monde, et de tourner autour de ce gigantesque scandale. Évidemment, comme elle a été énorme, cette histoire, comme les personnages sont tous hors du commun, ça a attiré l'attention médiatique. C'est vrai que les très grands médias, les très grands journaux, les très grands quotidiens, les très grands hebdomadaires, les émissions de télévision ont relaté l'affaire. Et puis après, les personnages de cette affaire sont venus parler sur les réseaux sociaux, etc. Et qu'il y a quelque chose qui a fasciné. Qu'est-ce qui a fasciné? Oui, cette idée qu'on puisse détourner autant d'argent, que des mecs de la rue puissent ridiculiser les plus grands esprits de la technocratie française. Voilà. Et puis surtout aussi peut-être une forme de vulgarité, de l'envie de faire du spectacle et de l'audience coûte que coûte. Mon précédent film traitait de ce sujet qui était Illusion perdue, d'après Balzac. Donc voilà, et en même temps, il ne faut pas tout mélanger pour finir. Ça veut dire qu'il y a eu des gens qui ont fait un vrai travail d'enquête, qui ont senti l'extraordinaire force de ce fait divers et ce qu'il nous disait du monde. Des grands journaux et des grands journalistes en ont parlé. Et puis évidemment, il y a derrière des choses moins intéressantes. C'est le monde moderne, c'est le monde dans lequel on vit.
Becker pour l'AFP. Deux questions, une pour Ramzy, pour revenir sur le personnage par rapport à ce que tu disais. Je voulais savoir quelle était ta part d'improvisation, si elle avait été particulièrement large, et si le rôle par rapport à ta carrière jusqu'ici t'avait permis d'explorer de nouveaux modes de jeu, trouver quelque chose de nouveau chez toi. Et pour Xavier, savoir série versus film, pourquoi une série? Est-ce que ça a été une façon d'avoir plus de moyens, plus de temps, une façon d'aller plus profondément dans les choses? Voilà, comment tu as appréhendé la différence?
J'ai tellement écouté la question pour toi que j'ai oublié la mienne.
Ta part d'improvisation, est-ce que si tu as pu explorer quelque chose de nouveau par rapport?
Ça t'a ouvert quelque chose de nouveau? Oui, comme ça tu réfléchis.
Bah, si, merci.
Et donc moi c'était pourquoi la série? Non, moi d'abord c'est une très grande chance d'avoir été dans une maison comme Canal+ et comme Studio Canal, puisque moi je suis arrivé avec ma vision personnelle, mon exigence, et ils ont tout de suite accepté cette idée qu'il y ait un auteur qui d'une certaine façon, même s'il y a eu au début Jean-Baptiste Delafont qui a travaillé avec moi, et s'il y a eu Frédéric Planchon qui a aussi travaillé à la réalisation, quand même moi je suis arrivé avec un point de vue radical, personnel, en écrivant tous les épisodes, en réalisant tous les épisodes. Donc ça ne veut rien dire série d'auteur, mais il y avait cette idée de me donner cette liberté et de m'accompagner dans cette façon de raconter une histoire et d'en faire une histoire très personnelle, comme un film. Après, avec le matériau génial qu'il y avait dans le livre, c'était évident qu'il fallait faire une série. Là, il y a 12 épisodes, j'aurais même pu en faire plus, tellement c'était extraordinaire. Maintenant, j'ai travaillé avec mon équipe de cinéma, mon opérateur Christophe Bocarne, habituel, avec lequel j'ai fait tous mes films. Et moi, j'ai fait un travail de cinéma qui est devenu une série en 12 épisodes. Mais mon travail est un travail de cinéma où j'ai essayé de chercher des traces d'humanité, de beauté, de violence, d'incarnation des personnages, des acteurs, exactement comme je fais au cinéma. Je n'ai pas cherché, je ne me suis pas dit « Ah, je fais autre chose parce que je fais une série ». Non. Et dans le récit, il fallait avoir une tension, une efficacité, une violence pour explorer toute la complexité de l'affaire. Voilà.
Et alors j'y réfléchis, c'est bon. Et en ce qui me concerne, oui, il y a des tournages où on peut improviser, donc, et on arrive et on attend l'action, et puis quelque chose sort et on improvise sur la scène. Avec Xavier, c'est pas comme ça. Avec Xavier, on propose des choses. Et il vaut mieux arriver le matin sur le plateau avec déjà des idées. J'arrive, j'ai bien réfléchi à quelques pistes que je vais avoir. Et il faut les proposer pour essayer d'avoir l'aval pour plaire à Xavier et que ça lui plaise et que ce soit vraiment dans le perso de l'histoire qu'il connaît mieux que nous, vu qu'il l'a écrit pendant très longtemps. Du coup, j'étais force de proposition, mais pas improvisé. J'improvisais pas. On est sur des rails, il faut les suivre. Et en revanche, il faut proposer des choses. Et ces choses que je proposais, j'y réfléchissais bien en amont. Et non, je ne peux pas dire que c'était une improvisation. Et puis, j'ai grandi à côté de ces gens. Je connais un petit peu cet univers. J'y ai grandi à côté. Grâce à Dieu, je suis acteur et pas voyou. Mais je vois comment ça fonctionne. Du coup, j'avais une base de données pour moi, une base de données solide pour proposer des choses à Xavier. Et puis, on voit très, très vite dans les yeux de Xavier s'il faut proposer autre chose ou si ça va.
Mais vous savez, c'est une chance inouïe d'avoir de tels comédiens et tous ceux qui ne sont pas là, puisqu'il y a un nombre énorme d'acteurs dans la série. Et en fait, moi, j'envisage le plateau un peu comme un atelier où ils ont tous lu le scénario, ils ont tous travaillé, ils ont tous appris leur texte. J'apporte un soin énorme avant le tournage à parler avec eux des dialogues, de trouver un naturel, de trouver une façon de parler. Et puis voilà, et puis une fois qu'on est sur le plateau, on essaye, on cherche. Et à un moment, c'est vivant ou pas. Mais c'est la même chose pour moi au cinéma, c'est chercher une qualité d'incarnation des personnages. Voilà.
Buongiorno, volevo fare una domanda al signor Lindon e chiedergli, insomma, visto che ci ha detto che questo ruolo in qualche modo la rappresenta di più nella sua carriera, così come un bambino che si veste da cowboy, le volevo chiedere invece in quale, nella sua lunga carriera, quale ruolo per lei è stato così lontano da lei che insomma si è sentito proprio lontano dal ruolo e molto diverso da lei pur avendolo interpretato. Non so se ha sentito... Sì.
Il y a deux sortes de rôles. Il y a ceux qui sont des rôles de composition, et il y a des rôles où on incarne. Moi, quand on me pose une question, j'ai la franchise de donner des réponses. Je n'essaie pas de plaire. Donc, les rôles où il faut composer ne sont pas les rôles qui me fascinent le plus au monde. C'est intéressant. Moi, ce que j'aime, c'est quand il y a un commerce entre un personnage et un acteur. C'est quand le personnage, ça va être un peu compliqué ma phrase, mais je vais essayer de la simplifier. Quand un personnage peut rentrer chez lui en se disant « j'ai la chance que ça soit lui qui ait bien voulu être moi », et quand moi je peux rentrer chez moi en me disant « je suis content d'avoir été lui ». Ça veut dire qu'on a fait une bonne affaire, les deux parties y gagnent. Si c'est me mettre au service que d'un personnage dont je ne pense pas forcément comme lui, je ne suis pas physiquement forcément comme lui au départ, je ne connais pas d'où il vient, je ne sais pas exactement où il va, et que je compose un personnage, ce qu'on appelle éventuellement le travail, à l'époque on disait ça vulgairement, le travail à l'américaine, c'est très intéressant. D'abord, je pense que je ne suis pas un assez bon acteur pour le faire, et deuxièmement, je ne suis pas sûr que ça m'intéresse forcément. Par contre, ce qui m'intéresse plus, c'est de me confondre avec le personnage, et c'est de ressortir d'un film en me disant je me sens plus intelligent, ou plus fort, ou plus faible, ou en tout cas quelque chose a bougé chez moi, et je ne suis plus le même après avoir tourné un film. Alors, ce n'est pas à la seconde même que ça se passe, mais il y a une irradiation qui se perd, et ça m'a changé quelque chose. Dans ce film, c'est non seulement, je sais ce que c'est, mais j'ai même trouvé la phrase qui fait que je suis content rétroactivement. Quand j'ai pensé à notre travail, je me suis dit, je suis content d'avoir fait ce rôle pour une phrase. C'était le titre du film avant, c'est le Tikkun Olam. Tikkun Olam, c'est dans la religion juive, c'est réparer le monde. Et je trouve qu'il n'y a rien de plus beau comme phrase que de pouvoir prononcer dans un film « réparer le monde ». Voilà. Et je pense que c'est ça qui, inconsciemment, en psychanalyse, m'a conduit, m'a aidé, je ne prenais pas beaucoup de danger non plus, on va se calmer, mais m'a porté. Je pense que ça a été ma corde de rappel pendant tout le film, c'est réparer le monde. C'est une obsession. Je sais bien que je suis extrêmement petit, je suis un 7 milliardième sur la planète, que je ne pourrai jamais le réparer, ou même si je le répare, personne ne le verra, parce que ma réparation sera tellement faible, tellement petite, et tellement comme une frappe chirurgicale à un endroit précis, perdu dans le globe, que là, au moins, voilà, je me suis raccroché. Dans ce film, ce qui m'a passionné, c'est qu'il est question de beaucoup de choses, de politique, d'escroquerie, d'environnement, d'écologie. Beaucoup de choses se croisent, mais il y a une chose qui m'a énormément plu, c'est ce que ça dit de la religion. C'est l'acceptation de toutes les religions, que ce soit d'être protestant, catholique, de religion juive. J'ai adoré que ce film serve aussi à aller plus loin dans les personnages sur d'où ils viennent, leurs origines, ce qu'ils veulent changer, pas changer, comment la religion juive peut interférer sur les escrocs comme sur cet enquêteur. Et voilà, donc pour répondre à la question d'une manière plus courte, oui, c'est un des rôles les plus intéressants que j'ai eu à faire, parce qu'il m'a emmené plus loin que le rôle lui-même. Et en fait, j'ai l'impression que c'est la grande histoire dans la petite histoire. La petite histoire étant le sujet du film. Et après, derrière, il y a une grande histoire, c'est l'histoire du monde. Et les films qui n'ont pas quelque chose de sociétal ou qui ne racontent pas l'histoire du monde au-delà de leur sujet ne m'intéressent pas beaucoup.
Purtroppo dobbiamo fermarci qui. Grazie a Xavier Giannoli e a tutta l'equipe. Grazie davvero.
Merci. Et merci, et merci au festival de nous avoir invités. Nous sommes une série et c'est un très très grand honneur d'être invité dans un plus grand festival de cinéma au monde pour venir présenter une série. Ça prouve que dans la série, il peut y avoir l'expression de quelque chose qui a à voir avec le cinéma. Voilà. Merci à vous.
per la conferenza stampa del film HOLLYWOODGATE. Vi presento a partire dalla mia destra gli ospiti al tavolo, il produttore Odessa Ray, il produttore Shane Boris, il regista del film Ibrahim Nasht e il produttore Talal Derki. I would like to start with a question myself, and it's the obvious one, is how did you convince the Taliban to, this group, to let you film them and to let you film it with such candor?
Okay. Thank you all for coming. It really means a lot. And first of all, I would like to thank our film team for the incredible job that they did from day one, making sure that I'm safe, making sure that I'm secure, making sure that I'm psychologically in a good place. They have really been great support, every one of them, in getting me in a place like here which I thought it's too far and impossible to get to. And they believed in me more than I did believe in myself. And they believed in the project in a way that they all wanted to do the same film that you saw. And what you're seeing now is an outcome of a full team that they all wanted to deliver the same message. And that's what I believe is very special about this project. Talking about the access now. I grew up in a family that is very religious, and I grew up surrounded by some radicalists that they were always trying to impose the ideology on me. And that was a really, at young age, I started to rebel against that, and I started to question things, and they were always refusing the fact that you ask. And questioning was something annoying to them. And questioning that at a young age somehow led me to journalism in my early 20s. And I worked for over 10 years in journalism, and during that time, I was able to film with world leaders. And when you film with world leaders, you're capable of understanding how can you reach people in power. It's not, maybe that's better. You learn how to film with people in power, and you understand how can you approach them. And so we started when the idea came. Talal and I were working on his film, his other film, and when the idea came, we said to our executive producer, hey, we want to work on this idea. Let's try to work all together, try to get the access, and we finally got the access to the fixture that is closest to the leadership of Taliban. They were new in power back then, very early. And we secured everything and arranged everything, and we traveled to Afghanistan to meet this guy. And unfortunately, the moment I arrived, the guy completely cut connections with me. He never answered anything. And during the time when I was talking to him, I asked him to provide me with a translator from the group to prove to them that I'm not here to trick you. I have someone with me from your side that is going to be accompanying me 24/7. So you somehow let me film. And when the guy stopped working with us, the translator saw that I'm really sad. And the days were passing by, we tried to find another way, it was not working. And he told me, hey, why are you sad? I said, financially, I'm out of any money and I cannot continue doing this. I think I have to leave. He said, why don't you come with me and meet younger Talibanis? He took me to the airport to meet his cousin. And the moment I entered the military airport, I realized, wow, this is an American place. And they closed the door and we saw the word HOLLYWOODGATE. And from the moment we saw HOLLYWOODGATE, I realized this is the place where I want to make the film. It's the place where the cultures clash. And we tried to find all the possible ways to stay within the place, and the story goes on.
Can you give us an idea of the timing? How many times, how much did you have back and forth? How much freedom did you have to come and go?
There was, since the idea from the beginning that I never lied to them, I said, I want to show the West your image through my eyes. And I will show them what you want me to show and what I saw. I will give the word, the image as is, completely clear, and the word get to decide If they like you, if they dislike you, it's up to the viewer. And I told them, this is not news, this is cinema. In cinema, people get to decide their own point of view of you. And of course, this has to be done through my eyes. And my eyes, that means there's an eye in it. It's not a clear introduction of you. My perception of you is in there as well. So that the truth made the things not as hard as it would be for anyone. So I was able to travel back and forth, but I spent most of the year almost there.
There's a question there.
Hi, this is Matic Majcem from the daily newspaper Večer in Slovenia. I have a question for Ibrahim. Yes. When I was watching the film, I had the impression that you were involved in some relatively dangerous situations. So I'd like to know, were you ever afraid for your safety while you were making the film? Thank you.
Whatever suffering that I had to go through making this film doesn't have a weight when you compare it to the suffering of the Afghans. The reality of the Afghans that they are facing today is beyond anything that could weight what I suffered. So it doesn't count, it's not important.
Go ahead.
Buongiorno signor Nashat. Volevo chiederle, lei prima ha parlato del messaggio grande che il suo film vuole lanciare. Ecco, può spiegare meglio qual è il messaggio che lei vuole trasmettere su questa realtà afghana che lei ha descritto? E poi, ecco, che cosa ne pensa lei del fondamentalismo religioso islamico, in particolare della radicalità talebana?
Okay, the message, first question is the message. The message is that we hope the film deliver, because first of all, cinema is not a place where you deliver messages. Cinema is a place where you reflect reality and people get to do what they want with the outcome. We're not here to ask for an action. We're not here to do any of that. We're just here to transfer the reality as is. And the world leaders are responsible for taking action by knowing the reality. Our job is just to transfer the reality. We hope that the film would show that the 20-year war has failed in the sense of not delivering any of what was promised, and we question, was it actually important to start it in the first place? And we hope that the world realize the reality of the Taliban's, of their radicalism and how they are today forcing the Afghans on what they are suffering. And if the situation stays as is, only God knows what will happen to those people. The poverty levels are beyond anything we could imagine. And with the current negotiations at the moment, the suffering of the Afghan is only increasing, and they are the only ones who are paying the price of the sanctions that's being applied because of the Taliban. Because the Taliban, they have the power and they have everything they want, and the 70% of the money that was supposed to be ongoing support from outside to the Afghans is being taken away from the Afghans, not from the Taliban.
May I just comment on that as well? One of the reasons Ibrahim was able to get access was because after the war, there was a euphoria for the Taliban of reclaiming Kabul. A brief window where Ibrahim was able to get access. One of the reasons that access was granted was because the Taliban wanted to show the world their image in this moment of euphoria. We're very aware that the weapons the Taliban inherited after the 20-year forever war of the United States and NATO and other partners was not just the military weaponry that they received, but is also now the new tool of media. In our film, we call it HOLLYWOODGATE because the Taliban are trying to claim that additional tool of propaganda to use for their means. And we wanted to draw attention to the weapons that they are receiving, both in terms of the military weapons and in terms of the new media weapon as well.
The film has so many almost metaphorical levels, and and one of the big themes is of course, the theme of interventions. Because the Americans are gone, but they, in that void, they left that legacy, which is, the state of the country right now, and also all those weapons. And can you talk a little bit about this?
This, would you like to answer? You want to talk about the metaphor?
Yeah, it's about the American, what the film is telling about American intervention or, Western intervention in these words.
This is also, the Cinema Verite has something that is really amazing, that you don't have to see everything with your eyes. It leaves to the viewer a lot of space to think and to see beyond the images that you're seeing. And this is what this incredible team of filmmakers and our editors, we worked all together to try to give the space for the viewer to see beyond the images that you can see. And definitely the presence of Americans is there through the feeling of abandonment and the feeling of failure, especially from those who trusted them, that they are left behind and now they have to work with the Taliban because they didn't want to leave their country. And what other option do these guys have except having to work with the Taliban? So it is there throughout the whole film, and the same goes for the Afghan women you don't see them much in the film, but you can feel them in the whole time that they are there. You can close your eyes for 1 second, and we tried in the edit to give you that time that when you close your eyes, you can see how women are suppressed without even having to see them in the film.
Yeah, Talal, do you want to add something to what you say? You also worked, as a filmmaker in that part of the world, about the intervention and.
What exactly the question?
The question is talking about the void left by the Americans, and the weight of intervention in these countries and what happens.
That's one of what if we call it message, what the information or the knowledge the film can bring it to the audience, and not only that, the idea or the classical way of interfere military under the name of democracy in Western countries or whatever country, it's failed. Look at Iraq, look at Afghanistan. The film brings a knowledge of understanding who we fight, who are those enemies, how they look like from inside, what mentality how they deal with the small. Because when you understand the way they're thinking, the way they take time to knowledge, for expert people, then when they watch the film, they really know who are Taliban. And that's the idea that we need to know the nations and the ideas, the people behind. And that's also not a request that I said that it's my request, but also if you look to the American people, most of them, they are against military invasions, whatever the reason, like protection or whatever. Because, we are in 2023, you can envision any country without weapons. There are a different way with the culture, with the knowledge, with the technology, with the brands. So that's what the film wants to say, that it's the result of 20 years of just fight with not clear direction. It might end up in this way, and the loser is the nations that they left behind.
I think I just want to add to that actually that is one of the reasons why I got involved in this film, is because I am an American citizen, and I think it's very important as an American citizen to question our foreign policy. We have been involved in many wars in the last decades, especially in the Middle East, that have been unsuccessful. And the only way to really, my job, I think, as a filmmaker, is to look at the aftermath closely so that we don't repeat mistakes.
Another very strong thing about the film is and this is, I really commend your choice, is the sense of space, and you just look at that. You don't say, oh, there is another point of view. You just show us this man, and it's almost unbelievable. You have to look twice when you see, because it's a group of men playing with this broken weapon that they may or may not fix. But it seems that the only thing, it's archaic. It's it's not 2023, but they exist, and all they want to do is war, because all they know is war. So if they don't have one at home, they're going to bring, they're planning to bring one next door. And I don't know, were you ever tempted to broaden it, or you just knew that that world was what you wanted to film?
when we found the location in the first place, and I had a long time there, and then I came back to Berlin, which was Talana and me, and we said, what's the name of the movie? And after 5 seconds, we both said HOLLYWOODGATE in the same time. And it's really hard to, from such an early stage, to form a goal that you're going for. And we knew that this is a very timely film, so this is the timeline we want to follow from the beginning, and this is the story we want to follow. Having said that, we knew from the beginning, if we try to get out of that access that we're given, first of all, the access might be taken away, or it might cause danger maybe to me as well, because I'm not really respecting, let's call it the trust, which I cannot really think it's trust, because I could always see that they never really trusted me. But on top of that, whoever we try to film outside, we're putting that person's life in danger. And we are keeping that person that we're gonna film in there. And this really weighs a lot, because all the invasions happened with promises that we are going to save these people, especially the last invasion, the promotion of the American war there. And so we call it American, but it's not only American, it's actually American and NATO, the USSR. It's many countries contributed in that. It's not the US that to be only blamed for this situation. It's all the NATO countries as well. And I'm sorry, it's great to have ADD mind. I went in another point. Where was I?
Yes. I will add to that, though, that one of the, by looking at the small inspection of them and just their weapons, there is a very broad message that comes out of that, which is war begets war begets war. And you can see that through them, and all they want to do is create war again, because it's the only thing they know.
Yeah, and you can also see what a world without women is, you know, and that's a really strong case for not having one, and why they keep marginalizing them, and it's really powerful because of what you don't see, as you said before, and it has I think in the production notes or in an interview you mentioned Greek tragedy a couple of times, and there is a performative sense of this, because they're almost performing for the camera. Did you feel that when you were shooting?
They are pretty aware of my existence, and what you saw is like the most filtered moments of them not being aware. But we didn't want the viewer to feel tricked if I don't put the points when we decided not to put the points when they feel aware. We make you forget about the war of propaganda that they are playing with now. The 20-year war has ended, and now the war of propaganda is on the surface. So this is their game now, and we needed the viewer to know that they are playing this game. They are not aware. No, they have a very strong media team. They were able, during the 20 years of war, to convince a lot of people to support them as victims, and now they are trying to make the people inside support them by claiming that they are the ones to apply Sharia law. And this brings us to I believe it's my most enlightenment moment of the whole process, when the secondary character of the film, Mukhtar, the ground soldier, says, or let's call him the secondary antagonist to give him the real definition of who he is. He said, I hope that our new law, which is forcing women to wear a face mask, is not contradicting with the Sharia law. Because that was like, huh? And I stopped filming after this, and I said, what are you saying? I was like, and I asked the translator, did he really say not contradicting with the Sharia law? Because that means he really doesn't know what is he preaching. It makes them like puppets. They are really brainwashed, and they are just following without thinking. And this is all part of the propaganda game.
And I would just add, talking about the Greek tragedy element of the film, HOLLYWOODGATE is a stage. It is a stage where wars are waged, where you stage the war. It also is a place where you perform power. And that became very important as we constructed this film with the help of our brilliant editors, Marion and Atanas, where there are two unsympathetic antagonists. And it's very hard to build a film and a story that we care about when those are the characters. They were incredible at crafting the camera person as this character that we could follow through HOLLYWOODGATE, which this place had a personality and a sense of being, and we wanted to really share with the world what that personality and what that place was capable of now that it is in the hands of the Taliban. And that, from the very beginning, Ibrahim spoke of this team coming collectively together to make this film. Our intention was to show the world in whose hands this country was left, and HollywoodGate was the perfect access point for that.
There's a question there.
Christiane Peitz from Berlin. Usually if somebody makes a documentary, he or she presents the material or the finished film to those who are portrayed in the film. Did you do this also? So did the Taliban see the film or the material, or could you just leave the country with the material and do whatever you want with it? Thank you very much.
The other thing about those people knowing the propaganda war is that they knew from the beginning is that if we let this guy film, we will not have control over his final project. Because the moment he leaves the country, he will have a lot of time to have to edit this film, and they understood that. They know that I will need a lot of time. I didn't need to describe so much. He said, you know, I'm never gonna ask you to show me the final film. We will never have control over that. So, no, they never saw the film until now, and I don't know when it maybe leaks or something. They will get to see it, but they haven't seen it now.
Yeah,
and they never had the final say in it.
Yeah, I want to add on this because that's usually when you do a film, we always do that. But when the subject is antagonist, so when you're going, because I faced this problems before, we get a confirmation in camera or sometime written that they accept like release form. But when you go to show them the film before you release it, that's 100% will put him in dangerous. Look at this point. Just 3 days ago, Ibrahim managed to hide the last website who gave the address of his company and my company. So if this information came earlier, they can easily do something before the film release. And we deal here with the war criminals people, not with the normal people. So that's a difficult point. And always, film like this, the filmmaker is the weakest point in all the whole subject and condition. So,
but also I want to add to make it clear, because there are ethics of making documentary, and this ethic I followed really clear, that I told them I will not be able to show you the final film because I don't own the final film. The final film will be owned by a company, and when the film goes public, you get to see it, but I cannot see it, I cannot show it to you by myself. When it goes public, you will be able to see it, and they knew that from the beginning. I didn't even tell them I will show you the film and then I hid myself. No, I was very clear and clearing to them that I won't be sending you the film.
But the last trip that Ibrahim actually made was the last trip that he could make. So there was really no further trips where they could have questioned, because on that last trip, which you see in the film, it's the end of the film, he was in an area with a lot of high officials, not just the ones that he was filming with, and his presence was clocked. And he was asked to show footage that day, and he left that day, and he knew that he couldn't go back. And so that was the end of the discussion.
Odessa, when did you and Shane got involved into this project?
It was right before that last trip, and I'd known Talal for 4 or 5 years. He helped me actually with my very first documentary, and they had been in secret working on this together, going back and forth to Afghanistan with what little money they had. And they had nothing left to take this last trip, which they knew was this big military parade. And it was in between that third and fourth trip that Ibrahim showed me, or Talal sent me some footage, and I immediately sent it to Shane, and we both discussed the next morning that it was just extraordinary. And I think 3 days later, I was in Berlin to meet Talal and Ibrahim.
And once Odessa showed me the footage, I had a chance to speak with Ibrahim, Talal, and Odessa. And I was in college when the war in Afghanistan began, and hearing terms thrown around like collateral damage as if it was just the natural course of history and an inevitability broke my heart to recognize the inevitable suffering that was going to occur in Afghanistan. When I saw this footage, it provided an opportunity to try in whatever small way I could to act on that formative experience in my life, and to try and contribute to this film that we all hope can bring attention back to Afghanistan and the people of Afghanistan in a way where we don't pretend to know the answers to this incredibly complicated and complex issue. But what we do know is we can only engage with it if we don't underestimate and misunderstand the complex of issues that are happening there.
You two have produced several documentaries and very high profile, one of the latest one being Navalny. What does a film like this, what power does a film like this to change the conversation on an issue? For example, in this case, Afghanistan and war.
I think that it has the ability to completely see something from a different perspective, which you would never normally see. And no matter what your feeling is towards that, it's going to start conversation. And I do believe and I do hope that from the documentary you question our actions in Afghanistan over the last 20 years, because you can see that the country is left in a very desperate situation.
And I think there's no certain answer to that most important question, but I think all of us at this table, all of us in this room, we have a faith, we believe that art and cinema can do something. And our hope is that we make the best films that we can make in the hope that something happens, that conversation occurs, that people look at an issue differently, and that any small step towards greater understanding will yield better results.
We're almost done. I have one quick question to Ibrahim. Did you ever feel you were being manipulated? I mean, you talk about propaganda, and they're good at it. So how did you figure it out, that fine line where they were not manipulating you?
Of course, everyone has his own manipulation way, but if someone is trying to outsmart you, this is a different game. If someone is really trying to manipulate you hiddenly, it's really harder to get through. But if someone is outsmarting you, it's easier to deal with. And again, I was never lying to them, and I was very direct. So the trials of manipulation were coming very clear, because I was very clear with my point. I never changed what I said to them. And if I get to one day, if it happens, I don't know, if it's both of us are in court, and I will tell them into their eyes, I told you that, and I did what I promised myself I will do. So this is something that really kept me going. And when manipulation comes, when you are really going with one thought and one intention, and the values are clear, then you could read the manipulation in an easier way, and that makes the one who's trying to manipulate you back up a bit.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. Thank you so much for the film and for being in Venice.
Thank you so much. I just would like to quickly mention our executive producer, Sahara Karimi, and thank her for her support to the film. She was the head of the Afghan Cinema, and she's here with us today. And it really means a lot that an Afghan woman joined us in this team, because we're all outsiders, and sometimes I feel like I don't have the say. In Afghanistan is not my country, although it's the whole area and the situation they face in Afghanistan is related to the situation they faced in Syria, people face in Iraq. We're all somehow in one basket, but definitely having her with us in the team made us feel like this could be our call, and I feel like now I could talk for the Afghans if she allows me to, and if the team of the Afghans that worked with us allows us to speak for them. Thanks.
Quick, yes, of course.
I just want to thank team, because we cannot go to Afghanistan and to make films, any. And Venice Film Festival is familiar with this issue because I had the last film that shot was at Venice. We had a competition. But thank you very much for putting your energy and your talent and everything, because we should show to the world that who is the Taliban, and it's clear, and we should show that they oppress women of Afghanistan, they oppress people of Afghanistan, because they want another war. They don't want any development for that country, and we can see clearly from that film. The only reason that I joined this team, because I am very anti-Taliban, but the only reason that I joined, it was because I knew exactly the message behind that, those scenes, those shots. So thank you very much, Ibrahim. Thank you very much, Odessa, Shane, Talal, because you became the ambassadors of our stories that we lost behind. Thank you very much.
Buongiorno, siamo qua per la conferenza stampa del nostro film in concorso El Conde e prima di cominciare vi presento gli ospiti al tavolo a partire dalla mia destra in fondo. Abbiamo l'attrice Paula Lusinger, l'attrice Gloria Munchmeyer, il regista del film Pablo Larraín, l'attore Alfredo Castro e il produttore Juan de Dios Larraín. And I'm going to start with a question to Pablo. Pablo, you've made several films on the history of your country. This is the first time that you approach it with a different angle, I would say almost like a genre. You use another language to tell that history. How did you come to that decision for this piece?
Well, it was a whole process to find what was the best way to actually face the man, Augusto Pinochet. He has never been filmed before, never been portrayed, whether cinema or television. So finding the tools and the right approach led us to the genre, led us to the combination of a farce and a satire with elements coming from, the legend, the logic, and the character of the Count, the vampire. And probably is the only way. I think that if you were to avoid the satire, it could easily take you towards some form of empathy, and that's not acceptable. And of course, Jaime, Alfonso is not here, he couldn't travel. He was very relevant in order when we think and we thought about this film, as a man that knew how to play him, that knew him as a figure. But again, basically, I think it's related to the fact that Pinochet never really faced justice and made him a man that lived and died in freedom and actually very rich. And that impunity somehow made him eternal. That eternity, it's the vampire.
I think we have a question there.
Buenas tardes, David Martos de Quinótico. Voy a preguntar en español a Pablo Larraín. Le quería preguntar qué le pasa por el cuerpo, qué previsión tiene sobre el recibimiento de esta película en Chile, qué cree que va a pensar la población chilena sobre este retrato de Pinochet. Y como español me gustaría pedirle si usted cree que eso se puede trasladar al apellido Franco. Gracias.
Al nombre, dice. Sí, es muy difícil saberlo, es muy posible que esté muy polarizado, que haya toda clase de opiniones, lo que me parece bastante sano e interesante. Personalmente creo que con Franco Pinochet comparten el placer por la maldad y la poca inteligencia. Fueron un poco unos bufones de otros grupos de poder que decidieron ponerlos ahí o apoyarlos en ese ejercicio. Pero saber exactamente qué se va a sentir es difícil. No sé qué piensan ustedes. ¿Qué crees que va a pasar en Chile, Gloria?
Yo pienso que en Chile van a haber dos posibilidades, que la odien o que la amen, pero intermedio no va a haber nada. A nadie va a dejar esta película impasible. Creo que va a producir mucha reacción, ya sea positiva o negativa.
Bueno, estamos en Chile viviendo los 50 años del golpe de Estado de Pinochet. Entonces creo que la película entra en un momento histórico relevante y la genialidad de Pablo, como siempre, ha sido encontrar el género, el cómo narrar esta historia, y creo que su genialidad es que es la única forma, a través de esta farsa política, crítica, de abordar un personaje tan siniestro como Pinochet. Me gusta mucho a mí Hannah Arendt, La banalidad del mal, cuando dice que efectivamente no es un adjetivo para describir la banalidad del mal, sino como un ser como Pinochet que surge como un vampiro en la historia de Chile, que era un tipo que estaba en quinto plano en el golpe de Estado, súbitamente se convierte vampirescamente en el protagonista de esta siniestra historia de nuestro país, y la capacidad de maldad que tuvo ese golpe de Estado, que fue ensayado durante el mes de agosto, antes de septiembre, el 11 de septiembre. El mes de agosto se ensayó el golpe de Estado en Chile, y se dieron cuenta los militares que el golpe debería ser sangriento y rápido. Entonces ahí apareció Pinochet y así fue, sangriento y rápido.
Agregar a eso una cosa muy, muy interesante, que hay ciertas personas que creen que Pinochet no debe ser filmado. Hay ciertas personas que creen que su figura no debe ser filmada o nunca o que todavía es muy reciente. Y con respecto a lo que está diciendo Alfredo, yo creo que el mal sí puede y debe ser filmado. Debe ser retratado. De no ser posible, personas como Lucian Freund, personas como Francis Bacon, como Francisco Goya, no podría pintar lo que pintaron. El horror y el mal tiene que enfrentarse, y una cámara puede hacerlo también.
Hola, buenos días. Soy María Guerra de la Scrib de España. Felicidades por esta película impresionante que de un momento has creado como el arquetipo total de todas las familias de los dictadores del mundo, y es interesante que el patetismo se centre en el robo de los dictadores. Me gustaría que si pudieras contarnos por qué te centraste en ese aspecto que hacen que es muy habitual, y el patetismo de las familias. Y luego también a Gloria, porque he leído que a usted le habían ofrecido varias veces hacer de la mujer de Pinochet y no quiso. Bueno, un poco que nos cuente por qué ha tenido esta película. Muchas gracias.
Bueno, todo esto surge con probablemente la primera broma de esta película, que es que absurdamente, tanto en Pinochet y en su gente más cercana y en las personas que lo apoyan, consideran que un soldado como él puede efectivamente matar y cometer violaciones a los derechos humanos en cualquier nivel y magnitud, pero no robar. Y ese absurdo moral es el puntapié. Yo me acuerdo cuando el caso Rick se hizo público en Chile, había vergüenza en la derecha. Y esa vergüenza se pasó bastante rápido porque se le olvidó muy rápido. Pero sí, como el elemento de que es algo bastante peligroso y que está sucediendo hoy día en el mundo, que es que cuando un dictador o una persona que está en un extremo, generalmente en la derecha, se le acaba el poder y tiene que retirarse, en ese momento es cuando más locos se vuelven y cuando deciden garantizar su pensión.
Es verdad, a mí me ofrecieron en muchas ocasiones, por lo menos en 3, incluso con un director italiano que fue a Chile, hacer a la Lucía. Yo creo que porque soy igual, ¿eh? Soy idéntica. No porque sea buena actriz, sino que pero esos proyectos fracasaron, ¿eh? Y este es el único que dio a luz. Incluso nuestra primera entrevista fue muy divertida porque no nos conocíamos. Y él me citó en un café. Decía, ¿para qué será? Entonces me dice, yo quiero que tú hagas el papel de la Lucía. Y yo le dije, ¿y a quién más vas a llamar? Soy la única actriz chilena que soy igual a la Lucía Pinochet. Bueno, después entramos ya al tema de la película y evidentemente no era el caso de hacer a la Lucía con su personalidad, no era imitar a la Lucía, sino que era la mujer del dictador que está en un impasse en que ella se va a morir también porque está vieja y no quiere morirse. Y la única manera de no morirse es que su marido la muerda. Y ese es el móvil de ella durante toda la película.
There's a question there.
Hola, desde Chile. Me gustaría preguntarles cómo creen que la naturaleza, qué dice la película sobre la naturaleza humana y cómo creen que esta película puede contribuir al debate en Chile, ya que, como decía Alfredo, estamos en los 50 años y por otro lado también tenemos lo que pasó hace poco esta semana sobre este milico que finalmente fue condenado por lo de Víctor Jara, por el secuestro y asesinato, y finalmente decide cometer suicidio y finalmente no paga su condena, que es algo que también habla la película, que es la impunidad.
Sí, lamentablemente esos casos son conocidos y llega bastante tarde, llega 50 años tarde, pero también sabemos que la cantidad de personas que cometieron algunos de esos crímenes está libre y esa cantidad de personas es mucho más alta que quienes han enfrentado procesos judiciales. No sabemos dónde están muchos de esos cuerpos, no sabemos quiénes hicieron esos crímenes, no sabemos quiénes produjeron las torturas. Hay algunas personas que están presas. Esa impunidad es lo que yo creo que tiene fracturado a Chile. Y creo además también que hay fuerzas que están circulando, que circulan. Y una de ellas es la Iglesia Católica, que tiene un rol muy interesante. Lo conversábamos con Paula. No sé si quieres referirte.
Sí. Primero sobre tu pregunta sobre cómo esta película puede ayudar a la conversación nacional hoy en día. Para mí es una película necesaria. Estamos en la conmemoración de los 50 años del golpe militar, que después hubo una dictadura de 17 años donde los derechos humanos de miles de personas fueron sistemáticamente violados. Y desafortunadamente, hoy en día hay un resurgimiento de la figura de Pinochet, hay un resurgimiento de la extrema derecha en Chile y creo que esta película es necesaria porque muestra quién fue Pinochet y las cosas que hizo, los horrores que cometió. Y creo que eso es necesario para que nunca más pase. Y también creo que este resurgimiento de la extrema derecha no solamente está pasando en Chile, está pasando en todo el mundo. Y creo que esta película nos advierte del peligro que podemos correr si empezamos a cuestionar la democracia y los derechos humanos. Así que espero que esta película ayude a la conversación para que todos estemos de acuerdo en que algo así nunca más puede pasar, ni en nuestro país ni en ninguna otra parte del mundo. En segundo lugar, con lo que hablamos de Pablo de la Iglesia, bueno, la Iglesia tuvo una división en la dictadura, hubo una parte que luchó muy valientemente para defender a las víctimas y otra parte que logró poder a través de la dictadura. Entonces creo que así como estuvo esa contradicción en la Iglesia, mi personaje también tiene contradicciones. Ella es enviada por la Iglesia Católica para matar a Pinochet y recabar información y también, si puede, lograr un poco de plata. Pero a medida que la película va avanzando, ella se ve, yo creo que seducida quizás por la oscuridad y empieza a tener esta agenda personal de querer convertirse ella misma en inmortal. Entonces, creo que las fuerzas de la contradicción también están en mi personaje.
Me gustaría agregar algo que surgió en la pregunta. He tenido el honor, la suerte de haber trabajado con Pablo en varias películas importantísimas de él y creo que el tema de la impunidad es un tema que atraviesa la cinematografía de Pablo Larraín constantemente y surge de un momento histórico súper importante en Chile, que llega a la democracia. El presidente Patricio Aylwin dice que va a haber justicia en la medida de lo posible. Y yo creo que ahí este país se hundió definitivamente y que nos ha costado carísimo que no hubiera justicia, no en la medida de lo posible, justicia total. Entonces creo que Pablo toma muy bien ese concepto, ese momento de la historia en muchas de sus películas y esta es una de ellas. E insisto que la única forma brillante de tratar ese tema es la textura y la forma que Pablo filmó esta película.
To what Paula was saying before, to the universal quality of, the film has a certain universal quality, and there are some formal choices that really support this, making this film not just something literally about Chile's, history, and it's the use of black and white, it's the use of the location, this remote place. Can you talk a little bit about those choices, and if there were?
Of course, I think that the movie takes place in a very isolated, nearly abandoned house in the extreme south of Chile, Patagonia. And we decided to shoot it in black and white because we think there was a good way to have a more sort of theatrical perspective. Es más teatral, it creates a distance, it's a fable where you could probably have the right distance. And obviously having someone like Ed Lachman taking the job as DP was very relevant, not only because of the aesthetics that are obviously very beautiful and his work as an artist, a poet on the image, but also because I think that having him, I felt while we were shooting that our images were to be universal. Having someone as a foreigner helping to build the narrative probably made the movie, we'll see, you tell us, more accessible in terms of its narrative. I think it's relevant to do that. And then Rodrigo Basáez, our production designer, extraordinary work. Same as Muriel Parra's costume design and Margarita Marchi, who's in makeup and hair. I think it's just wonderful that Netflix can support a movie like this that is bold, that is unique, and not only support the movie, but also support the Chilean cinematography that can speak to the world, that have the skills to do it, that can make valuable cinematic elements that can travel multiple societies. And we shouldn't take that for granted. I think it's important and it's relevant because nowadays, with the world changing so fast, having Netflix doing that, I think it's quite important. I really do.
The actor, he's not here, Jaime is not here, but the work in the film is incredible. Can you talk a little bit how you build a character with him and Gloria, how you build that couple? Because the couple is very believable.
Sí, lo que pasa es que con Jaime estamos trabajando hace, yo creo que 50 años justo. Somos compañeros, mi primera obra de teatro la hice con Jaime Badel. Entonces nos conocemos mucho y, claro, Jaime es el mejor actor de Chile en este minuto de su generación. Hubiera estado aquí, pero no pudo. Y a mí me parece que la inteligencia de Jaime le permitió personificar a este ser humano en una forma sutil, inteligente y sin caricatura, gracias también a la dirección de Pablo. Y congeniamos muy bien en las escenas que teníamos juntos porque ya nos conocemos mucho como actores. Y para mí fue un placer, un placer. Yo rescataría, fíjate, de la película, que es muy grande en todo sentido, es la hechura de la película. Es una película que yo no había visto nunca que se hiciera en Chile, con tal producción, con tal perfección productiva en los términos artísticos y también técnicos, ¿no? El cuidado que se hizo, primero que todo, las locaciones. Se viajó a Chiloé, que es lo más lejos que hay. Y en Chiloé Patagonia chilena, sí. Sí, no Chiloé, sí, Patagonia. Se hizo todo. Cuando tú veas la película y tú veas cavernas y veas túneles y veas cosas increíbles, tú tienes que tomar en cuenta que eso se fabricó. Y el genio de eso es, ¿se llama el que hizo la? Rodrigo Basay, que es un genio. Y todos los aspectos de la película en ese sentido están hechos como una gran película. Yo siento, porque yo he hecho muchas películas chilenas, que en esta se dio todo a nivel 7, todos los aspectos formales y los aspectos también que tienen que ver con el contenido, con nuestro gran guionista que es el maestro, que es maravilloso y que trabajó junto con el director para hacer un guión que es perfecto. Yo estoy feliz, si esta es la última película que hago, me voy feliz al cielo, porque en realidad fue maravilloso todo, volver a Venecia, después de 30 años que me gané la Copa Volpi aquí, también es una maravilla. Entonces, con La luna en el espejo de Silvio Cayosi, ¿no? Entonces ya me puedo morir tranquila porque cumplí un ciclo maravilloso. Gracias por llamarme.
Ah, Reina, por favor. Una cosa sobre Jaime, que no está acá, una pena. Me ha tocado a mí trabajar muchas veces con distintos actores. Por supuesto, tuve la formación acá con mi maestro, Alfredo Castro. He aprendido a poder enfrentar a algunos actores de distintas maneras. Los actores son muy distintos. Alfredo es un actor que da distintas cosas en distintas tomas. Y que va formando el personaje en la medida que va ocurriendo, que es muy interesante. Un sistema que yo creo que también tiene la gloria, que son actores que van intuitivamente armando el personaje, porque yo personalmente no ensayo mucho, no me gusta, no lo entiendo. Igual que la Paula, que va tallando el personaje en la medida que va ocurriendo. Jaime tiene una cosa un poco especial, que a mí no me había tocado ver nunca, que es que quizás por su edad y por el lugar en el que está en su vida, él prefirió hacer muy pocas tomas y por lo tanto hacíamos una toma, a veces 2 tomas, y cuando era mucho eran 3 tomas. En ninguna toma durante todo el rodaje estuvo mal. Es la primera vez que el 100% de las tomas de un actor en el que yo he participado, sus tomas sirven. Y en el montaje con Sofía, Subercasó, una gran montajista que hizo esta película, había que decidir qué camino tomar, más que cuál funcionaba y cuál no. Eso yo creo que está en un momento muy especial, y es una pena muy grande que no está acá, porque él es el Conde, y de alguna manera nos pusimos todos alrededor de él para poder filmarlo. Y yo creo que se sintió muy cómodo también con quienes están acá. Son actores que son muy generosos para que él pueda hacer eso. Son ambientes, y también, por supuesto, mencionar a los actores que no están acá, a Catalina Guerra, hija de Doña Gloria, que hace de su hija en la película. A Amparo Noguera, una maravillosa compañera y una de las grandes actrices que tenemos en Chile y en Sudamérica. A Marcial Tagle, un amigo muy querido y un gran actor. A Diego Muñoz, que siempre hace grandes roles y un panel en la vida. Y por supuesto Antonia Seger, que además de ser la madre de mis hijos, es una grandísima actriz, así que eso, muchas gracias.
Hola, buenos días, buenas tardes. Ya Carol Guerrero de Deutsche Welle y de W Radio Colombia. Mi pregunta es para Pablo. Yo quisiera saber si es mera coincidencia que esta película se esté estrenando cuando se van a cumplir los 50 años del golpe, o si estaba pensado así.
Un poco las dos cosas, porque queríamos hacer una película sobre Pinochet de vampiro, y la verdad de la historia, y Paco está acá, lo puede corroborar, nosotros fuimos a ver a Paco, que es la persona que está a cargo de Netflix en nuestra lengua, y le ofrecimos una serie de televisión. Y Paco dijo, ¿por qué no haces una película? Y nosotros, no, es que pensábamos que ustedes querían televisión. No, queremos las dos cosas, haga una película. Y nosotros, muy bien. Y nos fuimos felices a hacer la película, y eso no tenía exactamente un timing de estreno. Y luego se fue cuadrando, y cuando ya vimos que venía y que calzaba, nos organizamos para que así fuera. Pero un poco las dos cosas, no quisiera ser ingenuo al pensar que no sabíamos, pero tampoco fue algo diseñado específicamente para esta fecha, esa es la verdad.
Feliz coincidencia.
Juan de Diaz, you produce Pablo's films. How complicated would this compare to? It seems like the most ambitious film that I've seen of his. And was this a bigger production than usual? Was it difficult for you to?
Well, I have had the pleasure to produce all 10 Pablo's films. This year, our company will be on its 20th birthday. So the first one was in 2004. I think every film is different, and I think it's about the moment, the resources. I think looking backwards, I remember Fuga, I remember Jackie as a very tough one. And I think in this one, more than on the production side, which over the course of the 20 years we have developed a way to produce and understand our resources, and of course develop an entire generation that has been very successful in understanding the job, including Rodrigo Asáez and all the head of the department that we just mentioned. I think the hardest part of this one was to understand the tone, how to set the characters, how to connect this idea with an audience, and I think it's been a very courage attitude, and I think the hardest part is to really decide to do a movie about Pinochet, to put him in front of the camera for the very first time, and that means a lot, and probably it would have not been possible before for Pablo, because I think you need some career in order to be able to say, okay, now is the moment. And I know that he has been with this idea for years, so the hardest part was to decide that this was the right moment.
And Pablo, one more question for you. I read in one of the interviews that you mentioned you were referring to Argentina 1987, and as an example of the portrayal of a closure. That, a country that had a closure with with its past, and you said that Chile is missing that, and your intention or aspiration with the film is to create the premise for something of that sort.
I think Argentina 1985 by Santiago Mitre is a movie about justice. It's a movie of how they were able to take some of these people into trial, and how that created a national pact that this should never happen again. We don't have that. We don't have the nunca jamás. We don't have a national agreement on that. And that is because of the impunity we were talking at the beginning. I think there's certain stories, certain movies that can successfully tell, like the movie What We Need, No, that it was, it was an amazing, beautiful, interesting process on how Pinochet was defeated in a referendum. But as Alfredo was said, there was a national pact, a national agreement that the country was better and more stable with Pinochet alive on the street. So we never really achieved justice, and so I think if that movie is about justice, this movie is about impunity.
Thank you, and I'm told that we have run out of time, so I want to thank the guest for being here, for bringing the film to Venice.
Thank you.
Buongiorno, siamo qua per la conferenza stampa del film in concorso Ferrari e vi leggo a partire dalla destra in fondo gli ospiti al tavolo. Il compositore Daniel Pemberton, il montatore Pietro Scalia, il direttore della fotografia Eric Messerschmidt, il protagonista del film Adam Driver, il regista Michael Mann, l'interprete Daniela Piperno e Patrick Dempsey, un altro interprete del film. Wow, okay, here. Yes, it's there.
Congratulations, everybody. It's Stephen Schaefer for the Boston Herald. So happy to be here in Venice with you guys. Wonderful world premiere. Michael Mann, I wondered why Enzo Ferrari now in the 21st century to resurrect this lost world. And for Adam Driver and Patrick Dempsey, where was the point that you both committed to say, yes, I have to be in this movie and play these characters? Things. Mike.
Why Enzo Ferrari? Because his story is so profoundly human, and when you encounter a character as dynamic as he is, as operatic as he is, the more specifically you get into the man, the more deeper the dive, the more universal it becomes. And I found that the way so many parts of him are in opposition to each other, his life kind of resonated with, for me, the way life is. So either it's melodramatic and profound, or I am in fact as oppositional as he is. I don't know, but it was those are the reasons why.
Michael and I had met about something a year before, and one always wanted to work with him, obviously. He sent me this. I read the script, and the character was very much what he described. Also just the different relationships he was with different people and how everyone would have an opinion about their version Ferrari, but this one, whose internal engine was very much driven by grief, and the difference in his relationship with Laura versus Lena Lardy versus his mother, against at that time and that moment, all seemed like a subject I didn't know much about, and seemed daunting and exciting. And with Michael being the person who's you're doing it for, it seemed like a kind of no-brainer to me.
Well, hello, everyone. It's great to be here in Venice. I read this script, I think, maybe 10, 12 years ago. I was very familiar with the story from the Ken Brock book, and certainly there's another book called The Limit. And this period in motorsport history has always been fascinating to me. As soon as I read it, I was like, this is the best script that I've read in and around the motorsport world, and particularly in this era, which I find to be the most romantic and certainly the most deadly. And I actively went after this. I just wanted to be a part of it in any capacity. I was working in London at the time. I just had finished watching the opening Grand Prix last year when Ferrari won. And I was like, oh, this could be the year for Ferrari. And I wanted to reach out to Michael, so I sent him an email, is it true that the movie's now going? And he said, yes, it is. And then I asked, could I come in and have a meeting and to discuss? And we had a discussion, and he thought about it. And I got a call about a month later, and he goes, would you like to play Piero Taruffi? And I was like, absolutely. I'd be so grateful to be a part of it. And that's how it started.
Michael, why, Enzo Ferrari had a long career, why did you choose this moment in his life? It's a very specific moment. It's not a happy, aggrandizing moment, but it's so poignant in many ways.
Because in this one year of 1957, many of the dynamic conflicts that are going on in his life all collide into this particular period of time. The company's going broke, but more importantly, he's just lost his son Dino, so he's in a state of grief, and he and Laura's marriage is falling apart, and they're both handling grief in two different ways. And yet Piero was asking, am I Piero Lardi or Piero Ferrari? So everything about their history and what their future is going to be all are pivoting right now at this particular moment. And to answer the earlier question also, it's, these conflicts are universal. And in Ferrari, it happens to all of us in all of our lives. So grief, loss, love, passion, ambition, these are universal things, and it's all compressed in this life of Enzo Ferrari in a very melodramatic and operatic way. And so that's why, Ferrari in 1957. So.
C'è una domanda qua?
Buongiorno, Annelisa Alfanderi. Volevo chiedere a proposito delle corse, quindi la ricostruzione della 1000 miglia, come è stato? È stato difficile ricostruirla, tutte queste automobili, la rivalità tra Ferrari e Maserati. Ecco, sono più esigenti gli spettatori normali o i fan delle corse? Grazie.
How was it to make the Mille Miglia, the race?
To make the race?
Yeah, and the rivalry between Maserati and Ferrari.
Okay. You're asking how is it to make the race? Yeah. I've done enough, I've done a little bit of amateur racing, and the experience of it is such that two things. One is that the focus is so intensely on one singular objective, and everything else in your life disappears. And that and a sense of, if you like, agitation. So I wanted to bring that experience to an audience as opposed to very elegant graphics, which is also possible to handle racing. I wanted to bring something of the experience of driving these particular cars in the 1950s. So that influenced everything about how we shot it.
And then the rivalry between Maserati and Ferrari, the rivalry.
Well, the difference between Maserati? Yeah,
the rivalry.
I don't know that there is a difference between the Maserati and the Ferrari.
The conflict.
The conflict. The conflict between the two companies, they're both teetering on the edge of bankruptcy for very different reasons. Enzo is a race car driver. All he cares about is the race team. And he went from being a driver in the 1920s, and he had some moderate success in my imagination, or in fact, maybe he raced against Nuvolari once or twice, and that was enough to convince him you're not a race car driver, and he started managing the Alfa Romeo team. And so that's his priority. That's his imperative. And everything about the business is only to support the racing. Maserati is a completely different story. And by that point, the Orsis had taken over from the Maserati brothers, and they were trying to run a business. But Italy was still in, this is 1957. The economic recovery does not happen until 1962, 63. So life is difficult, and everything is hand to mouth. And so one or two companies are going to survive. But what I found fascinating about this conflict is that it wasn't just Maserati versus Ferrari. They also had two football teams and two opera companies also right in Modena. You had the Comunale, and then you had the Storchi. So it seems to be a town in which everybody was gravitated towards dualities and competition. So.
Qua, una domanda qua.
Spen Dalton from Screen International. This is a question for Adam Driver. Congratulations on the film, and it's great that you're able to be here to support it. I was just wondering, in the midst of the ongoing SAG-AFTRA strike, if we could hear your thoughts on that strike, and if you had any message for the heads of the studios and major platforms who are part of that equation.
No, I'm very happy to be here to support this movie, and the truncated schedule that we had to shoot it, and the efforts of all the incredible actors working on it, the crew. But also I'm very proud to be here to kind of be a visual representation of a movie that's not a part of the AMPTP, and to promote a SAG leadership directive, which is an effective tactic, which is the interim agreement, which is twofold, which it allows independent movies that have no association with the writer is a non-WGA member, for independent movies to be made. I think it is like 15%, more than 15% are WGA, so the majority of independent films are the opposite. So not to stop the bleeding a little bit as far as some people in IATSE and SAG to be able to go to work. But the other objective is to obviously say, why is it that a distribution company, a smaller distribution company, like Neon and STX International, can meet the dream demands of what SAG is asking for? And this is pre-negotiation, the dream version of SAG's wish list, but a big company like Netflix and Amazon can't. And every time people from SAG go and support a movie that has agreed to these terms, the interim agreement, it just makes it more obvious that these people are willing to support the people that they collaborate with, and the others are not. So when this opportunity came up, it seemed like understanding the interim agreement, it's a no-brainer for all of these reasons why you want to support your union, and I'm here because of that, to support stand in solidarity with them by showing up and just further proving the point that it really is about the people that you make it with. And I mean, that's very resonant with our movie. It feels like we made it, and I can maybe let PJ speak to it more than I can, but it was touch and go. It seems like one time someone was in the catering department, the next time they're on set with us, playing a part in the movie. You know, it's very impromptu, and you're battling, obviously, nature and time and all these things. That a movie is made at all is a miracle. So this one in particular felt very important to show up for, and again, to be here for my union and to support the interim agreement.
Yeah, I would add to that the individually and collectively we all stand in total solidarity with SAG and also with the Writers Guild strike as well. And the SAG particularly, and I'm quoting from the SAG was released, is that to be crystal clear, once the agreement is in place, we fully encourage our SAG-AFTRA members to work under that agreement and promote work made under that agreement because it benefits SAG in their negotiations. And this picture, Ferrari, got made because of the people who worked on Ferrari made it by foregoing large percentages of salaries in the case of Anna and myself, producers such as PJ and John Lesher, who basically worked for no fees, and cutting like that. That's why this picture got made. So it's not made by a big studio. No big studio wrote us a check. And that's why we're here standing in solidarity with both unions. Yeah.
There's a question there.
It's okay. Buongiorno, Messo Mazzetto, l'altra pagina. I have a question for Michael Mann. First of all, thank you, because I grew up in a family of car workers, so you give the right attention, the emotion I feel when I go to watch rallies. And I want to know, how do you work on the sounds of the engines for the actor, for Adam Driver and Patrick Dempsey? How do you feel to drive these historical and mythical cars? Thank you very much.
How do we work with the sound? The sound you're hearing are actually the sounds of those real cars. So, for example, the Maserati single-seater that Behrad drives is historical. The car's a historical car. It's owned by Nick Mason, the drummer from Pink Floyd. And we recorded it at the time, but then we went back about 7 or 8 weeks ago and loaded that car up with 7 and 8 microphones and recorded it in every situation. We did the same thing with competition V12 Ferraris. So not just V12s in the period, they're actual competition V12s. And so the sound's authentic, and there's nothing quite like it. They're both beautiful and threatening and savage and very emotional. So thank you for recognizing that.
And there was a question for Adam Driver?
No, Patrick. Oh, it was?
Yeah. The feeling of driving the actual cars, yeah. If it's for
The scariest day on set. They wouldn't let me drive the cars for insurance reasons. As I said before, you know, making a movie is a miracle, and they don't want me touching the thing that's the most expensive part on the... I don't drive the cars, except in pre-production we raced Ferraris to kind of get obviously newer Ferraris. Can't afford the other ones. And then at the beginning, you know, I'm not driving that one. It's on a dolly. Again, they don't trust me with small pieces of equipment. You know, big pieces of equipment like sandwiches. You know, they'll let me handle. But Patrick can more speak to that.
Yeah, it was quite terrifying, actually, driving a modern car. You have a roll cage. There was no cage in this car. It was a Caterham chassis. And the same family built all the bodies, traditionally. You want to tell that story?
About the cars?
About the cars and how they were built?
The cars started by us taking a three-dimensional LiDAR scan of actual cars. And tonight you'll see it, the actual car that Tarufi won the race in will be out there tonight on the red carpet, the real car, not the ones we built. And we took that LiDAR and put it in a CAD computer program, and then custom designed a tubular frame or chassis, and then had a Caterham four-cylinder twin-cam engine driving it. So the cars are absolute perfect replicas of the real Ferraris and Maseratis.
Yeah, we had a sequential gearbox, which was really nice and very quick. The balance of the car was really good, really neutral. So as we were doing the racing sequences, certainly the beginning part of the Mille Miglia at night was really quite exhilarating because we kept going faster, 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 and visibility was terrible. And I was like, well, what am I doing here? You know, there's no roll cage. This is really frightening. And then it gives you a much better perspective of what the drivers in that particular era were going through and the risks that they were putting themselves and their fellow competitors at it, racing that closely. But it was exhilarating. It was really quite exciting. And there was one particular kink in this section of road that we were running, couldn't quite see. And to be driving with the stunt drivers and the other racers in this was really exhilarating and fun. And you felt like you stepped back in time, which was quite remarkable.
Also the sense of how dangerous they were to what Patrick is talking about, that seatbelts wasn't an act of negligence. It just wasn't a part of the culture at the time in a way where, you know, car seats are now and then they weren't, you know, in the 80s and 90s. It's just, almost the goal was to be thrown from the car as a safer way of a crash than staying with it is, again, a time capsule.
And the fear of fire was a big thing as well.
With Cinema Magazine, great to see you guys. Michael, I'm really curious, especially in reference to a biopic. There's a fine line between honoring a legacy and navigating through the myth, specifically of a person. I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about that journey as you were constructing it. And Adam, going back to cars, I mean, since Patrick, we all know that he likes to race. How daunting was it to be around these? Did you have a new appreciation for these race cars now? I mean, are you intrigued?
Biopics to me are linear and belong on the History Channel. So they're documentaries, and I'm not interested in that at all. Making somebody come alive as dynamically operatic and melodramatic as Enzo was in these unique circumstances of Modena, which is like no other place, in 1957, in this critical crisis of his life. To me, is a drama, and it's better than anything I could make. The real story, the real Enzo, is better than anything I could make up. But from everything from his strafing wit and his humor, which is there in his writing, which is very good, by the way, to the situations with Lena Lardy and Lara, and we did there's a lot of research and a deep dive into that life, both with Lara's doctor, who's still alive, and then with Lena Lardy's niece, and finding out everything about the fabric of the culture and the people and the way they thought and dressed and everything they did in this little microcosm of Modena.
There's a question here.
Yeah, it was less about understanding how impressive the cars are. It was more interesting to me the mindset of a racer. I mean, it's obvious that the technology in 1957 and Ferrari in particular was way more advanced, and that's resonant now. But the mindset of when we were racing cars in pre-production with Ferraris and open-wheel Rebels were basically essentially a motorcycle engine. You become painfully aware what Michael was talking about before. In a way, it's the opposite of escapism. It's absolute focus on the moment that's happening right now. There's no room for daydreaming or losing focus and attention because of it's dangerous. You'll crash, obviously. So that the mindset was helpful in playing the character, where there is he's instinctive, he's impulsive, it's pre-psychology. He's making decisions in a vacuum because he's used to doing them alone. He's built a way of coping with that, of death, and especially with people that he's cared for, not only by his son, but teammates who have died because of the metal that he's made, like he says in the movie. So building those guardrails for himself and the mindset of absolute focus and absolute presence was really helpful. So that was the big thing that I had appreciation for and it's hard, Michael would talk about this all the time, it's hard not to get philosophical about an engine, actually. It's true, it's the amount of pieces that have to come together, similar to films, and work on the exact right timing and the exact right moment, and then this missing element of human intuition and reflex. You know, it's a 50-50 marriage, and that's very much filmmaking or anything. The amount of things that have to come together for something to operate, is beautiful, and it also makes you aware of how many things can go wrong at any moment. But when it happens, it's a special thing to be a part of. It's a drivable clock or a moving piece of art. So that part I'd never considered before, and was a helpful internal engine for the character.
Yeah, and some of that came from, let me add something, some of that came from the generosity from the factory, and particularly Gabriella Lally, who worked in the Classique division, and who demonstrated the inside of a Lampredi V12
right. Yeah.
to Adam and I, and it looks like the inside of a beautiful watch. And to think that all this moves in perfect synchronicity at 8,000 RPM is just incredible, particularly given metallurgy in the 50s. But one of the things I'd add is that from the driving, one of the other aspects of it is the addiction to the euphoria of it. And that's something that Jean Bérat was very literate about, and he witnessed the Castellotti crash, and that's how we know what happened on that chicane in the Autodromo in the beginning. And he referred to it as this ridiculous euphoria that we're all addicted to, but that is central to Enzo and to Anna's portrayal of Enzo's character, that drive, and I'm sure Patrick can talk about this more than I can.
There is a high from the experience because I think Adam spoke so beautifully about it. The mindfulness aspect of it is you are in the present. You're aware of everything that's happening in front of you, beside you, and behind you. And with that level of intensity after a long run, especially in an endurance race, you come out in a completely different place, and it's transcendent in that sense. And that's what the beauty is. That's the addiction of it. That's what's hard to give up, that moment of, it's a calm exhilaration that it's how we should be living. It's what all of the spiritual books talk about, is being in the now and being in the present. And I think racing does that, or any sport where you have to be that focused because your life depends on it. And I think that's what's so special about it. And it's up to you to really dive into that and to stay that focused. And it's hard to put into words the feeling. I wish you could all experience it because it is so magical.
I like to bring Daniela in the conversation as one of the three women in Ferrari's life, and it's a fascinating triangle. And if you can talk about your experience in the film and about the character itself of Ferrari's mother.
Intanto per me lavorare con Michael è stato come danzare con Nureyev, cioè essere presa per mano da una persona di grandissimo talento che ti porta verso il suo talento e quindi ti fidi e sei felice. Questa è stata la condizione, il mio stato d'animo che si verificava ogni giorno che stavo sul set e provavo e recitavo con Adam e Penelope sotto la guida di Michael. Il personaggio poi mi è piaciuto moltissimo perché c'è un termine americano che si dice bitchy, no? Che sei un po' così, non sei proprio simpaticona, ecco. Questo modo di essere l'ho trovato audace, cioè una che ha il coraggio di essere così odiosa che fa ridere. E siccome Beckett diceva che non c'è niente di più comico dell'infelicità, qui ho trovato proprio la verità di questa cosa, perché lei è una donna straziata dal dolore. Gli è morto il marito, è morto il primo figlio che adorava, quindi scatena la sua rabbia, la sua frustrazione sul suo figlio Enzo, se può gli dice cose riduttive, lo mortifica, cioè tremenda, tremenda. E sotto ha un enorme dolore, però è così tremenda che fa ridere e questo diciamo che è una delle cose che mi piace di più nella vita, ecco, che ci sia dell'ironia e che soprattutto venga raccontata l'ambivalenza di cui siamo fatti, no? In ogni personaggio, in ogni scena, in ogni battuta di questa sceneggiatura meravigliosa il personaggio dice una cosa e poi c'è un'azione che smentisce quello che ha detto. Cioè racconta l'ambivalenza di cui siamo fatti questo film, parla di noi continuamente con una verità che rende tutto vero, appunto, e secondo me è bellissimo, quindi io sono contentissima.
Avevamo una domanda qua.
This is Matic Majcem from the daily newspaper Večer in Slovenia. I have a question for Adam Driver. Adam, in the past couple of years, we've seen you play two renowned Italian personalities, first Maurizio Gucci and now Enzo Ferrari. And I'd just like to ask, how do you deal with that extra layer of responsibility that comes with playing those kind of characters? And are those the kind of challenges that motivate you and drive you forward as an actor? Thank you.
It seemed, we were talking about this earlier, the place is the thing, where it seems hard to make this, movie in Belgium because of tax credits, you have to kind of be in the place and smell the manure from the farms and see the vista, go to the factory, hear the engines. Immersion is similar to learning a new language is the thing. What you pick up from the crew, and that understanding of a different culture is the thing that I love most about being an actor. And what's lucky about being an actor is forced empathy. You're forced for 2 or 3 months or for a year leading up to it to empathize with someone who's different from you and who's made different choices at a different time. And without judgment, look at their life honestly and with some sense of perspective and try to immerse yourself in what you think. It's a very weird job, but it's what I'm interested in. And it connects me to people that I normally would probably never interact with. And you're lucky enough to go to the place that helps you. It's hard to, I would imagine it'd be more difficult to do that when you're not there. But a trap or a danger of it is we were shooting it in Modena, surrounded by Ferrari iconography, going to the Ferrari museum, seeing how much the Ferrari symbol, the name, the person, the contradictory stories, the personal associations, the restaurants that he went to means to people. So there's an added responsibility to not fuck it up, to take it seriously, but not get so distracted by playing someone else's version of that person. At a certain point, this is the version that we're telling in our story. This is our script. If someone wants to write a different script about a different time in his life, that's them, but we're focusing on this version, so owning it. It's similar with playing anybody real. You feel like you take the pieces of them that open your imagination, and then the minute that starts getting in your way or stopping an impulse, you have to cut it out, you know. So, but there for sure, to answer your question shortly, it is an added responsibility because it's not your culture. So it seems like you have to know more. You have to really immerse yourself in the place is a massive part of it. And even from Roberto, who is our camera operator, who is, you know, a good sounding board. I mean, not to blame him if you don't like things in the movie that don't feel natural to you, but
yeah, he'd go no.
Yeah, he'd be no. It's hard not to absorb, you know, and have a checks and balances when it's, you know, immediate response from people in the room, or you just naturally absorb. You go to. I'm over-explaining the answer, but being in the place, you know,
I have a follow-up question for Michael on this. When we saw the movie for the selection, you have American filmmakers that come and film in Italy, and there are American films made in Italy. This one felt an Italian film. Is a film that captured completely the post-war culture in our country. The role that this major industrialist had, in the economy and for the local population. So, Michael, what fascinated you about that, and how did you capture it?
Kind of like by having an approach and doing work that's kind of similar to cultural anthropology. You have to immerse yourself as deeply as you can in the place, in the people. What are the values? What's the authority structure at the time? And in Modena, which is very unique, but it seems like nobody ever leaves Modena. If they leave, they come back. I could walk out of the apartment we had and go around the corner and sit in the same barber chair that Enzo sat in and get a shave by the son of the barber that shaved Enzo every morning. And then right around the corner, it was Enzo's house, and next door to that is the Storky Opera. And so the compression of space, but so there's the physical place, but the more challenging and exciting part is attitude, psychology. What is typically marriage? What's extramarital? How those relationships form? Lena Lardy's situation in the world 10 years after the end of World War II, and it had to be 12 years after the end of World War II, and there had to be a number of single mothers in Italy at that moment in time. Lara, as a conventional woman, bereaved by the loss of her son and kind of imprisoned by that, whereas Enzo, also begrieved and in a state of grief, is in fact planted in the present, looking only into the future. That's all everything is what's next. So people say to Enzo, what's your favorite car of all the cars you built? Answer was always the next one. So, and the way these lives are all operating in opposition to one another is kind of what's fascinating. But we do the work, and we correct as we go. I'm obsessed with getting important things right. Adam's obsessed with getting important things right. We realize at one moment in time that maybe we don't have gestures. So there's this wonderful scene where Adam says, Fusaro, Fusaro. And so we build these things in there and do it with great care, particularly with the language. And I made a decision early on that the way we should handle language is not hire British actors and speaking in British accents, which is the typical way this is done, but in fact to speak American English with an Italian accent except for place names, and then to get that accent as accurate to the region as possible, and we continue to work on that through post-production, and that was very important.
But I should say that is a process that's dictated by Michael. That's because he's set up a way of working that allows people to do that and approaching it with not commenting on the thing that we're making, and he is a great audience member for acting and making sure that everyone feels very much of the place. But only with because he's made time in the schedule and there's a clear directive of the nuances in different dialects from different regions. Someone has to keep track of that. And if you're not part of a process where people aren't doing that, then I feel like it starts to get wayward. And that's the borders that Michael has kind of set up.
Well, there's a certain brusqueness to the Modenese mentality that I met Scaglietti many years ago when he was a very old man, and there's a certain gruffness. And what fascinated me was that when Rai would interview Scaglietti and put it on Italian television, they had to subtitle it in Italian because nobody understood him. So, you know, I mean, just that plus the attitudes of Modena, and you know, that's the work. But I'm very, very gratified at the question because this audience is the toughest test of all the work we did, and I know that if we missed, we'd hear it. So.
Unfortunately, we have to stop here. They already called me twice. Ferrari ha una distribuzione italiana che è in esclusiva a Leone e arriverà nelle sale attraverso 01 Distribution entro la fine dell'anno.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Buongiorno, anzi, non lo so se si sente, funziona, sì, vi vedo tutti. Buongiorno e benvenuti alla conferenza stampa di DOGMAN. Prima di cominciare vi presento gli ospiti al tavolo, cominciando dai produttori Steve Rabineau e Virginie Besson-Sil. Gli interpreti Jojo B. Gibbs, Cabell Adri Jones, e lo sceneggiatore e regista Luc Besson. Yes, it was the first one I said. Allora, so che ci sono molte domande, vorrei soltanto introdurre con una breve domanda per Luc Besson. Maybe you should wear the headphone, or I will speak in Italian. Okay. Yeah, you need to wear. Ok. Allora, la prima domanda che vorrei fare a Luc Besson è, abbiamo letto che insomma, la scintilla di questa storia nasce dalla lettura di un articolo di giornale che raccontava di un bambino rinchiuso in una gabbia. Ecco, mi piacerebbe sapere come poi è cresciuta, a partire da questo fatto di cronaca, come è cresciuta questa favola nera su... How you go from the chronicle article to the story?
In fact, I'm writing since
The mic, the both.
I'm not used to mechanical stuff. Yeah, in fact, I'm writing since I'm 16 years old every morning at 5 a.m. And it's my way to escape this world. And when I read this article, I just figure what kind of life this boy can have after that when you cut your roots like this and your parents throw you in a cage. What do you became? Or you became a terrorist or Mother Teresa, or what can you become? And I just try to imagine his life, in fact. And that's it. I just try to imagine.
Hi, congratulations. What a fantastic movie. What a great surprise here. So I'd love to ask the actors how your process for getting into these characters, especially Caleb, and for Luke, I kept thinking of Todd Browning as I watched this. I felt like this was like a 1930s classic horror movie that we were seeing. So can you talk a little bit about your references with this, Luke? Thank you.
You want to talk about the process?
I was very fortunate. Luke gave me a lot.
Can you?
Sorry.
Just for you to know, he's working on a character in Scotland, so it's not his normal voice, but he needs to stay in character. And so if you don't understand so much the accent, it's brilliant accent, but
it will be better in the film. But I was very lucky that Luke gave me so many different things to take when I first got there. Staying with some wolves for a few days, for instance. I was also got a lot of help from another actor, Tonio, how do you say it, pronounce last name, Descovell? Descovell. And he was helping me phonetically learn the Edith Piaf song, because otherwise I would not have been able to do that. Wearing a corset, a lot of limping around. I don't know.
the first thing, we went to a spa. I want him to lose 20 kilo, and I tried to lose 10 at the same time. So we help each other. And no, what was funny is we went to see a professor because the bullet that he take in his back, there's a lot of difference if you take the bullet after the 7th vertebra or the 9th vertebra or the 10th, and it's not the same way of walking. So we went in this spa trying for hours together to work, to try to find the walk. Some people were seeing each other. They see both of you in the street, they were just kind of scared. But then we finally find it. It was probably what was the most difficult to find. It's the way he walking. And then we have a ritual every morning, because there's basically 100 dogs. And every morning they go in the park. They have a big park, and we were in the park every morning. You lay on the floor. They kill you in 10 minutes. You're like full of mud. But I think it helps us, like on the set after the dogs knew him and knew me, and that helps a lot. It was just the time, in fact.
And our 9 trainers that we had.
The what?
And our 9 trainers that we had.
Yeah.
And what about the cinematographic reference you were asking also, right?
The reference, yeah, I'm not a very, I'm not a specialist of cinema. I'm not a big, you know, my stepdad doesn't have TV at home. So the first time I did my first film, The Last Combat, the first critic, they mentioned 3 films as a reference. So I went to the video club to rent it. And I still don't understand why. But so I think it's in conscience, you know. But I think in fact you're more inspired by the people around you, the people you love, about the trees, about the weather. You know, it's a better inspiration. People in the street walking are amazing. You know, you try to imagine the life of each of them. And that's a better food than film himself, because film is already digested by a director, and I love to be invited at the table and eat what he prepped for us, but it's generally not my inspiration. I'm just like fascinated by their movies, but it's usually not my inspiration.
And the question was also for, about
Yes.
your approach to the
Approach?
character.
I think the most important part was just knowing the lines, and then, you know, Luke did such an incredible job of directing me, and through the scenes and the writing, it made it so clear what he would, to me, what he was looking for. So, yeah, the hardest part was working with the baby, I would say. He was not feeling me. So that was probably, Luke said, I've never seen you so nervous. I was like, well, the baby doesn't like me. But that was, being a mother was probably the most difficult character to get into.
Can I say a little thing about the work?
Mm-hmm.
We try something, because Jojo arrived at the end of the shooting, and everything is in the room, you know, together. So I rehearse with him, I rehearse with her, and we try to put Caleb in the jail, and she never met Caleb before. And I put 3 cameras, and I say, okay, you get in. So he doesn't even know how he's dressed. And I said, let's try what happened. So I have this take where the 3 camera, and she's coming, she never see him, and they knew their line by heart, and they did the entire scene, you know, just like one first row, to see her expression when he sees her, when she sees him, and at the end, it was a long take, like 6 minutes, and I say cut, and they say, hi, my name is Jojo, my name is Caleb. And we try, and in the first scene, half of it is this first take. Yeah, so I'm glad we try it.
I think it was pretty effective.
Prego.
Hi, Scott Orland with Cinema Magazine. First of all, I start with Caleb. It was heartbreaking to watch this character evolve because we see the damage that can happen to a child when there's abuse and the after effect that comes through. Can you talk a little bit about, I mean, you obviously weren't playing the character as a child. Were you able to watch some of the things that went through to help inform you of where you had to go and do that? And talk about the quietness of your performance, I thought was just beautiful. And then Luke, if you could just address real quick, the audition process for the dogs. How did you decide which one was going to get what part? So Caleb.
Actually, it was the other way around. I think the kids was watching stuff, Luke was showing stuff from what we'd shot already, because the boy was shot at the end. And then we also mixed a bit of my voice, correct?
It's your voice.
Is my voice kind of pitched up or something like that? In the kid's mouth, I guess. But as far as trauma and all that, I wouldn't know where to begin exactly, except I wouldn't know where to begin with all that.
What about the stillness of your performance? I mean, can you talk about as an actor, because sometimes people want to be very exaggerated, and yet you were so...
It was a great compliment. Got to have dinner with Walter Hill, we did, and he said it was a very controlled performance, and he's a fan of controlled performances, and that meant a lot, because never sure what I'm doing exactly, but I knew he was happy, and that made me happy.
Yeah, the dogs. It was a long process, a couple of months. So in the movie, we have 3 American stars, okay, who come with their own dresser. You know, they have the thing. The trainers, sorry. And they have their own trailer. And the rest is une meute. I don't know how you say that in English. A group. The group take 4 months to do, because some of them doesn't fit together after a week, so we have to change, and so it takes like 2-3 months to get a solid 65, 70 dogs who spend their time together, and in fact, there's things that you teach them, but after a while, you have to be able to follow them. You know that this one liked this one, so if I put this one here, he will cross the room and go to the other one. So you try to understand, how it's worked. What was complicated is the star, as usual, doesn't talk to the other one. They were very like, who's this guy? And we have one French star. His name is Doberman, the Doberman, the one who is like this. He's never with the other. And he comes specifically, he has 1 day of shooting for him. But he was very cute. My favorite is one like 80 kilo. It's just like come over you and like lick you everywhere and you destroy for the day, but that's okay. And no, with the dog it was. One thing that I didn't expect is there's 25 trainers and they have 2 dogs each. So during the take, the dogs just react with the voice of their master. So when you say action, there is 25 people screaming in the same time. Couché, couché, c'est là, couché. Vas-y là-bas, tu vois, tu es couché. 25 in the same time. And Caleb is reading Shakespeare. So, but you get used to it, and the trainer has to hide everywhere. So every time you see an armchair or a table, there's a trainer under it. They were on the roof, on ladder. So you just get used to it. That's it. But it takes a week. Yeah, thank you.
C'era una domanda lì?
Hi, thank you for letting me share just a moment with Caleb. My husband and I were at Cannes Film Festival in 2021. We saw your performance in Nitram, which is very powerful. And I felt some similarities in terms of the quietness that somebody else was talking about. you're so riveting as an actor, you cannot take your eyes off of you. So I'm really excited to see what Scottish project you have coming up next. Anyway, Mr. Besson, I just wanted to say it was a beautiful film. I'm a huge dog lover, so it was, I was holding it together the whole time. The very last scene with the doorman, I believe, the Doberman that was there at the house to protect, I thought was a beautiful way that you tied in the character that he lived on in terms of his protection of others. And finally, I just want to say that I heard a quote once that was, "Dog backwards is God." And I noticed in that one scene in the cage with the boy, if you look at it, I knew that must have been, it had to have been, I had chills all over. So thank you so much for dog lovers and film lovers for such a beautiful film. I'm sure we all enjoyed it. Thank you.
Just, you know, that when I start, I was 17, and there's this man who said, you know, it takes 2 years to make a good film. It makes 2 minutes to fuck it up. and it's true. And all the movies I've done, 3 months before the end, they were bad. Honestly. You know, it comes good sometime, but just at the end, because you work and work and work. Virginie, my producer, she's a tough cookie, believe me. And she helped me a lot on the editing. She's always very cold about it. She doesn't want to see all the delis. She wants to stay out, you know, to be able at the end to give comments. The last thing you mentioned was not in. Can you believe it? I think it's the best scene in the movie. We didn't have it. You know, we talk, and it was missing something, and I scratched my head and said, okay, how can we do? She was on another set. She flew back during the weekend to do the scene again, and it's just a little miracle, you know, but it's interesting to know that honestly, every film's good. It looks like this one is not too bad. But it's always a little miracle, always. There is no genius. There is no, like, you know. You just have to work and keep what's good and work on what's not good and work again, and that's it. And I have a team of workers, incredible. And I'm so thankful to have you guys, you and you. And now I'm going to cry, so I stop.
Vorrei coinvolgere nella conversazione i produttori, Steve e Virginie, che esperienza produttiva è stata per voi, e in particolare Virginie, che lavora con Luc da tanti anni, che non sostiene soltanto i suoi film, ma proprio la sua visione artistica da così tanti anni.
I didn't hear the beginning of the question, I'm sorry.
Okay, I'll tell you in English. What was your productive experience? And you don't support just a movie, but a vision since at least 2 decades.
I think as a producer, the role is to come and bring all the ingredients and everything to make the movie happen. And you have to give it to the captain, the director, and understanding who he is, where his emotions come from and all that, makes it easier to bring all the elements for him than to do and so along the years now, because I actually haven't produced Luc for 20 years, just maybe like 10 years. I've done other movies, but more and more, a movie is done with many people. It's not just one person. And so to be there and make sure that everybody clicks together, that's how I do it.
Yeah, this is my first experience as a producer. I was an agent for many years, and I just sort of saw my role as someone who could support Luke's vision, and was fortunate enough to be partnered with Virgin and Luke, and just happy to be here.
Ciao, Taxi Drivers. First of all, the movie is stunning. I keep thinking about it, so thank you. There are many topics that told through this story, but one of them touched me in different ways. That is the relationship between God's will or fate or the things that happen to you and the actions and the things that you do to change it. Can you talk more about how you get this balance between these two topics? Thank you.
I'm going to try, because it's... There is one line in the movie where they said, she say, the roots, you know, are the fondement, I don't know how you say fondement, the basic of a man, which is true. And they say, yeah, but the roots are invisible. And the analogy is very strong, because we see a human being and we don't see the roots. We don't know the past. What happened when you cut the roots? And all the religion, all of them, it's about faith. How can you keep faith when you are in such a situation? So I don't make any judgment about it. I'm just saying, okay, so what happened to this kid? Like, how can you, if one God wants to help him, how is he going to do it? Because for me, this kid is looking at the sky, and he say, what did I do wrong? How I can change the things? And the only answer that he has is to go at the end and walk and come to see him. That's the only reason. It's almost the essence of a religion. You know, of course we don't have answers. You know, the answer is here and you have to find it. And it was just a way of like talking a little bit about it, with respecting a lot the people who believe, for sure. But we still have questions about it. So.
This is Matic Majcen from the daily newspaper Večer in Slovenia. I have a question for Caleb. Caleb, you're known for playing very diverse characters, but you're also known for making music. So I'd like to ask you if acting and music are part of the same universe where you can live out very different made-up characters, or is that more of a vehicle where you can express your true self? Thank you.
More or less.
Hello, I'm Gavai Simonati from Red Carpet Magazine. I just want to compliment with the performance, which is amazing, and with the idea. My question is, one of the ways to survive is culture. What comes out to me, what I perceived, is through book, through theater, through the beauty of the knowledge. I just wanted to know how came the idea, or if it was part of the story of this guy that then evolved himself into something that can relieve the suffering. Thank you.
I think the only two things that can save you is love and art. Definitely not money. When you have both, you're lucky. When you have love and art. And those.
Hello, thank you so much everyone here. I'm still so impressed by the film. I still can't stop crying. I'm so oversensitive. As a young director, I'm super inspired by your film and this press conference because it also gives a very deep insight into this story.
Don't cry. Hold it.
Yeah, I will try. Yeah, so I'm so curious. Can you please share your director's preparation, like your method, or like some insight of this side? It would be very precious for me. Thank you so much.
First, I wrote the script very. If there's one thing that I'm very, very proud is my freedom. And as I said, I woke on the morning, wake up and start to write, and no one can stop me to write whatever I want. And when I finished the script, I said, it's not bad. I like it. I put it on the side usually for a couple of weeks, and I take it again. God, that's good. It could be good. But my first fear, who's going to play that? And I was fearing that I will never be able to find an actor crazy enough to do that. And so I start looking. I've seen a small picture of Caleb. I say, oh. So I went on IMDb, and I said, oh, I've seen Get Out. Oh, I've seen this one. So in fact, I've seen him like 10 times. But he's like a chameleon, you never know. And especially the young brother, the Tom Cruise movie, what's the name of the film?
American Made.
American Made, he's hilarious in the film. And then we met. We didn't talk about the film, just to, if you have to spend a year with someone, like just let's see, if he's not an asshole, if he's good, if he's, you don't go on a boat around the world with someone bad. So we do like 2 or 3, tea. And then after I say, do you like animals? And then the preparation, in fact, is impossible without him. And he was nice enough to connect with me, and then we do it together. And Virginie, when I show her the picture, and she say, it's him. That's it. And then we go little piece by little piece. That's it. We just take our time. And when we were ready, we go. That's all.
And Caleb, which was the most exciting or moving scene of the film for you?
When you turn around and there's 35 dogs looking at you, it's quite something. So maybe baking that cake was quite surreal, just to turn around and they're all, looking at you. Quite amazing. And silent, too.
And what about your performance as Edith Piaf?
There was a lot of folks in the crew that were crying, so something must have happened that day.
Abbiamo tempo per l'ultima domanda.
You had just mentioned...
I'm sorry, just for Edith Piaf, we also plan to do the scene not right away. So we wait, we push a little bit for him to be ready to do it, because he doesn't speak French, and it's a really hard thing. And after the shooting of the scene, I said, when did you feel that you were ready? He said, this morning.
I was going to follow up on that, because you're also doing Dietrich on stage, and then you're Marilyn Monroe in an extended time where we never really get to see you do Monroe. Can you talk a little bit about inhabiting these legendary women as part of, what he's going through, how he expresses himself this way?
Well, I mean, for Douglas, it's an escape. It's a way of getting to be free. So I'd watch a bit more, probably Edith Piaf. I'd probably watch her more, just because that needed to be. If it didn't work, then the film doesn't work. I mean, when it comes to the others, watching them too, but probably not as much as the Edit, but I don't know. I'm not sure. Just a lot of, you know, my job is to be a sponge. And so that's all I can say. Fill it up with stuff and hope something comes out that's honest. No, I didn't keep the... No, I wanted to burn that corset, I think.
Dobbiamo fermarci qui. Thank you very much. You want to say?
No, just to say that it's interesting in the role of Douglas. He wants to play as an actor, but he can only do a character who doesn't move. So that's why it was Edith Piaf and, you know, people who can't move. So, thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.